Happy Halloween and welcome to the episode where we're going to discuss the monsters that lurk in every wholesale transaction. Let's get started with our monster roster. Starting with the most feared of them all, the ghost seller. The seller that vanishes right after saying, "Yeah, I'm ready to sign that contract, but I'll call you back tomorrow." Now, how do you overcome this? The slaying method to overcoming the ghost seller is by keeping that seller on the phone, finding out what their true objection is. This monster is the monster that the newer wholesalers fall victim to more often than not. They feel great. We came to an agreed price. I'm going to write up the contract. I'm going to send it over to them. And then they're completely Casper on you. Now, it's your job to make sure that you understand what the true objection is, because I can promise you they're still going to sell their house, just not to you. Next up in the monster roster is the zombie lead. Now, if you're using my preferred method of lead generation, PPL, speed to lead, lead Zolo, property leads, if you come across a zombie lead, you get a refund. Doesn't cost you anything, but these zombie leads, they can be dead for months, but then randomly reply to a follow-up text message and say, "Is that offer still good?" Now, this is glorious. I share these stories all the time of us closing deals 2 years ago, a year ago, 6 months ago. Your job is to constantly nudge that dead zombie and ask them, "Are you still looking to sell?" A lead is a lead until you either sign a contract or they say, "I am not selling you my property." Next up, we have the appraisal demon. Now, the appraisal demon pops up its ugly head when you've done everything right. You've gotten a signed contract. You've done your recon. You found your end buyer. You signed an assignment. And then the appraisal demon will appear at closing right before, because your end buyer was using a hard money lender and they disagree with your after repair value. Now, this happens and it can potentially kill a deal. And sometimes it's heartbreaking. But what I will say is, what is even more heartbreaking is if you were to go through and sell that end buyer a deal where it ends up not being nearly as profitable as it should have been. So sometimes the appraisal demon showing up can be a positive, especially if your after repair value was incorrect. Now, there are other times where when the appraisal demon pops up its ugly head and says, "I don't think the after repair value is 300,000. I believe it's 275,000." And now your end buyer wants to back out of the deal. Now, in those scenarios right there, if you have proof, you can submit that to the appraisal demon and try to get that changed on the appraisal. Again, this monster right here is one that can save you, but can also cost you deals. Next up, we have the title troll. Now, the title troll, it hides under its little bridge of every closing, guarding the deed. But what I will say about the title troll is you can overcome this if you are using a transaction coordinator inside of your transactions. And I believe every wholesaler should be using Easy REI closings. Now, if you want to learn more about Easy REI closings, go to titaniumtc.com, because the transaction coordinator has dedicated their career, just like Speed to Lead and Lead Zolo and Property Leads has dedicated their careers to being great at generating leads. The team over at Easy REI Closings has dedicated their lives to understanding how to conquer and defeat the title troll. It is inevitable that somewhere in your transactions, There are going to be title issues, things that are going to have to be overcome. And maybe you don't have the skill set and the knowledge to overcome that yet. And that is when you employ the transaction coordinator to come in and help you overcome the title troll. The next, we have the overanalyzer vampire. Now, the funny thing about the overanalyzer vampire is it could be you. The wholesaler that's sitting there and saying, well, so-and-so said I should cold call, and this person said I should do direct mail, and RJ says I should do PPL. And so I'm just sitting here trying to figure out, what am I going to do? Because I don't know what the correct method of lead generation is. Or even worse, maybe you have leads and you just sit there and stare at your CRM all day long. Maybe you're one of the overanalyzer vampires where you sit there and you pre-comp your leads before you even pick up the phone to see if they still have a house that they want to sell, or if they're even willing to sell that property for a discount. So you sit there and you take all of this time to overanalyze the deal when it was never a deal to begin with. So be aware, don't become an overanalyzer vampire. Next up, we have the HOA ogre. Now, this is for your end buyers, but it can also come back to bite you as a wholesaler. When your property is in a homeowners association, there can be significant rules around what can and can't be done to the property. And because of that, it can significantly lower your buyer's pool. Now, also, there's times where you could get a lead in a condominium or a townhouse where it is in a homeowners association, and the monthly fees or the quarterly fees are so significant that it eliminates exit strategies like keeping the property as a rental, and it could significantly hinder your ability to be able to dispo that deal. So be aware of the HOA ogre. Next up, we have the contractor kraken. The contractor kraken is the contractor that promises the world but disappears mid-project, but always wants to get paid in advance. Oh, I'm delayed because of materials. Oh, I had someone, their van broke down today. I promise you we'll be out there tomorrow. Just pay 50% of the invoice up front. Now, this could happen to your end buyers if you're a wholesaler. And what ends up happening there is because of the delays on that one project, the cash conversion cycle for your end buyer is so significantly slower that they stop buying deals. So if you are a wholesaler who has an end buyer that's been attacked by the contractor kraken, what you always have to do is be networking and finding new relationships with end buyers. If you're always going back to the same end buyer over and over and over again, it is inevitable that eventually that end buyer is going to say, I can't buy this deal right now. So beware of the lurking contractor kraken. Last but not least, we have the JV Joker. This is when you go into a Facebook group and you post a deal saying, hey, I'm looking for an end buyer in Dallas, Texas. And the JV Joker comes in and says, I've got an end buyer. But they actually don't. They just want to take your deal and they want to sign a JV agreement and then take over your opportunity, which is to work dispositions. Now, I believe in the power of doing joint venture relationships, especially between someone that's newer and specializing in acquisitions and partnering up with someone that's known to be a great dispo partner. But the JV Joker is someone that sits around and is doing this all day, every day, in every city in the United States. And all they're hoping is that they can take your deal, blast it out on Investor Lift, and hope to get offers. They're not actually going to work the deal. They're not actually going to do dispositions. They're just a JV joker. They're hoping and praying that the deal that you have brought them, that you did all of that hard work for, ends up being good enough to where the software disposes the deal for them. So be aware of the JV joker. And when someone comes to you and says, I have an end buyer in that location, ask them specifically, if you do, why don't you go ahead and send that over to them and see if they're willing to purchase right now. Build relationships when it comes to dispositions, even with your JV partners. All right, guys, that's our special Halloween episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. I love Halloween. Be safe out there tonight, trick-or-treating with your kiddos. Show me some love in the comments. If you know of another monster that should have made it on our monster roster, drop it in the comments. Regardless, show me some love. Like today's video. We'll see you guys tomorrow.